The market is an absolute mess. Interest rates are so high. It's getting so expensive to borrow money as a business owner. People are scared to spend money, so it's tough to find customers. You're scared. You don't know what to do with your business. But what if you could turn this into the best thing that ever happened to you? If you're a small business owner, this is for you, because I'm going to share with you the 3 reasons why this is not the end of the world, and then 3 ways that you could take advantage of this and grow your business and prepare it to sell. The best and smartest business owners actually know how to win in all market conditions. They don't cower in the corner when money gets expensive and people get scared and the market gets weird. They make fucking money moves. In fact, when things are uncertain and volatile, the ones at the top of the game actually love it. Warren Buffett once said, "Be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful." Because this is a fearful time. You can bet that these power players are going to be greedy, and I want you to win from it too. They've usually got a room full of people telling them how to do it, but I get it. You're not lucky enough to have a full board of advisors in a room telling you how to make these decisions. Let me step in and be your board of advisors for a minute here. I got invited to a big mergers and acquisitions office to speak to a top-level investment banker recently. Now, he shared with me some ideas that at the time absolutely rocked my world. For context, this was a multinational firm with offices all over the world. He was just one banker. They specialize in representing business sellers and getting them acquired all year long. So even during these tough times, they do this. And this might sound crazy, but stay with me here. High interest rates can actually be your best friend in the right circumstances. And today, I'm going to dive into how you can attract the attention of bigger businesses. I'm also going to cover how you can make a deal with them that benefits you and their business. I actually helped a seller do a deal like this recently, and the 3rd strategy I'll share at the end of this is the type of deal that he took. But first, I've got to explain some things. First, how in the world could high interest rates be a good thing? I'll give you 3 reasons. Okay, so usually when a big business wants to grow and expand, they go to the bank and they say, "Hey, Mr. Banker, I'd like to take out a loan for X amount of money. I'll pay it back to you with interest after this amount of time. And this won't be an issue because I will have made back that much and more based on this plan that I'm showing you right now." And the banker says, "Sounds like a plan. Your business kills it, and I can give that money to you at a low interest rate because this doesn't feel risky at all to me. And giving it to you at that low interest rate helps me create a relationship so that we'll all make money in the long run." Now, here's the issue. Right now, those interest rates are way higher than average. Because things are crazy and uncertain, the banks can't give those same big businesses the breaks that they're used to giving. So reason number 1, the businesses still want to grow, but they have to get more creative. Instead of borrowing this money, they choose to grow through acquisitions of smaller businesses. In other words, it may be less expensive for them to grow the same amount by buying your successful small business than borrowing money for them right now. The second reason has to do with risk versus reward. These big businesses deal with a lot of the same concerns that you do as a business owner. They're worried that their growth plan won't pan out perfectly when they borrow the money. So when things are crazy and uncertain, your successful little business with a happy customer base might actually look a lot less risky to them. In other words, instead of borrowing money for a new plan, they'll borrow business. They'll buy something that's already working. You have proven processes, systems, and customers that they don't have. Now, the 3rd reason is the one that I really want you to focus on. And this has a lot to do with strategy. I always tell business owners that I talk to that want to sell their business one day, there is more money for you in a strategic sale. Let me explain. Imagine 2 businesses that are considering buying yours. For one, maybe a private equity firm or something like that. You'd just be another set of cash flow to them to add to their list. For the other, you have a customer list that allows them to sell not only to your services and customers, but also to theirs. You also have a great team that complements theirs. The first one is what's known as a financial buyer, who only really cares about the bottom line of making more money. The second one is what's called a strategic buyer, who sees some kind of strategic reason to buy your business. Now, the thing is, the strategic buyer is going to be willing to pay more. Now, this all sounds great, but it's not quite so simple. Remember, they're buying your business because it's more expensive for them to borrow money to grow than it is to buy your business. So they're not just going to throw mega cash at you that easily. They are going to do something called creative financing. All this means is making creative deal terms that make it easier for them to afford you. It also means if they buy you, you don't get all the money right away, probably. I'll share with you 3 ways that this might play out and the pros and cons of each. Now, while you listen to me explain these 3 ways, just hit that subscribe button real quick so that you can be the first to hear when I share more content like this in the future. Now, first, let's talk about Pat. So Pat owns a small painting company that makes about $500,000 in net profit per year. He's been running it for about 25 years and it has a great team in place managing it. So Pat decides he'd like to retire and wants to sell his business. Based on his research, he sees that businesses like this usually sell for 1.8 to 3.8, the average net profit or EBITDA. Now, because he wants to fund his retirement, he needs to be smart about the way his money is getting to him. Now, getting the low end of that range won't do it for him. So he thinks of Elite Home Services, a larger company about 10 times the size of his that offers a few home services. They don't offer painting, but they would like to. Now, Pat has known about them for a while and even used them for other services for himself. They've got a great history and run a great company, and he really feels good about them. They don't have a massive pile of cash to throw at Pat for the business all at once, but he also doesn't need all the money right away. He actually decides he'd rather try to get more money over a longer time. They don't offer painting, but they would like to. Now, Pat has known about them for a while and even used them for other services for himself. They've got a great history and run a great company, and he really feels good about them. They don't have a massive pile of cash to throw at Pat for the business all at once, but he also doesn't need all the money right away. He actually decides he'd rather try to get more money over a longer time. So they strike something called a full seller financing deal, or lease to lead. Here's how it works. Elite Home Services takes over the business, but agrees to pay Pat $1.75 million over the course of 5 years. Now, this $1.75 million is at the higher end of what his business makes sense to sell for. And that's because he allowed the buyer such great terms. This will be plenty for Pat to cover the expenses every month and to save a lot for retirement. Now, for Elite Home Services, think of this like leasing a car, except they own the car at the end of the deal. They pay for the car lease and monthly payments, and they get to use the car right away. In this case, they can even use it for Uber and make money from it. But the transfer of ownership doesn't fully end until the lease term is up. The pros: Elite is able to pay Pat more over the course of the time than he could have got to sell his company all at once, especially because they can use the cash flow of the painting business to help pay him. He gets more money overall. He also pays a lot less in capital gains taxes each year than he would have getting the money all at once. And then the cons: Pat doesn't have a huge stack of cash at once to use for some kind of new investment. There's also some risk that Elite Home Services fails in business somehow during that 5 years and isn't able to keep paying him. Now, the reason this makes sense for Pat, though, is because it fits with his needs and goals. He doesn't need a ton of money all at once, and he trusts this particular company to continue on and keep paying him. Let's talk about Nancy now. She's going to make what I call a half now, half later deal. She owns a small roofing company that makes about $300,000 in net profit a year. She's been running it for 10 years. She has a couple of young kids and a husband that she'd like to spend some more time with. Now, she has the business set up with managers that handle the day-to-day responsibilities, and her husband is actually in real estate. Together, they've found a very attractive investment property that they want to buy. They need about $400K to be able to put down to buy it. Nancy decides to sell the business, and ideally she'll use the proceeds to buy this investment property. Based on her research, she sees that roofing businesses like this tend to sell for 2.5 to 3.5, the average net profit. This could bring her about $750K to just over $1 million, depending on the buyer. Now, through a connection of her husband's, Nancy meets the owner of Roofs R Us. This is a roofing company about 20 times the size of hers in the state next to her. And she hears that they've been wanting to expand to her area, and they would like to buy her business as a way to do it. They also have some pretty major money set aside for expansion. They agree on a half and half seller finance deal. And here's how this plays out. So Nancy and Roofs R Us agree on $820,000 for the sale price. Roofs R Us takes over the business for a down payment of $410,000, or half up front. They decide that they'll split the other $410,000 up over monthly payments over the course of 3 years. She'll get it in monthly installments of just over $11K. Now, for Nancy, this means enough to put a huge down payment on the investment property she looked at. It also means enough coming in monthly to cover some expenses, save some money, maybe cover the mortgage, or do whatever. Now, for Roofs R Us, they only had to put half down. The other half they can pay off from the monthly profits of the business. This is like buying a house for them, but the house starts paying part of its own mortgage immediately, and while they get the other benefits too. The pros: Nancy gets a big sum of money all at once. She can use it for that big investment property that she wants. Plus, she gets to have a steady stream of income after that for a while, for 3 years. Roofs R Us also gets their expansion plan without a crazy amount of risk on their part. Now, the cons: Nancy's going to pay some big taxes on that first year of the sale, really big. And like before, there's also risk that Roofs R Us fails in business during the 3 years and isn't able to keep paying her. If you were paying attention, the $820 is also on the lower end of that price range she could sell for. Roofs R Us discounted the overall price because they had to pay so much up front. And that's likely to be the case with most buyers. This makes sense for Nancy though, because it helps her make the life change she wants. All right, so here's my favorite type of deal I've seen play out. Let's meet Tom for a second. So he's gonna make what I call an elevator deal. He owns Greenscape Landscaping, which specializes in residential and commercial landscaping services. So Greenscape makes around $500K in net profit every year. And after 15 years, Tom is thinking about the next steps. He's still young, but he thinks he can do bigger and better things, and he wants to sell his business, but he wants to maximize it. So he's not in a hurry. And that way he can do it right, and he has a ton of money to play with for his next steps. At a conference, Tom meets the owner of Outdoor Living Incorporated. They're a larger company that's growing into more outdoor services. They see Greenscape as a complement to their existing services and a way to enter new markets. So after negotiations, they agree on an elevator deal, and here's how it looks. First, Outdoor Living Inc. purchases 70% of Greenscape for $1.4 million, valuing the company at $2 million. This price is based on Greenscape's strong profitability and their market position, and they decide to pay him out as a combination of seller financing and salary over the course of 4 years. Next, Tom keeps 30% stake in the business. He continues giving advice and help, and he wants to make sure that they have a smooth transition and that the business succeeds. For the next 4 years, Tom and Outdoor Living manage Greenscape together, and during this period, Outdoor Living actually leverages its resources to expand Greenscape, and they grow it a ton. So 4 years later, Outdoor Living catches the attention of a national landscaping company, and the Greenscape part of the business is now valued at $5 million because of all the expansion. So the whole business gets sold, and Tom actually gets $1.5 million for his remaining 30% share, and he rides off into the motherfucking sunset to his next stage in life. So why is this called an elevator deal? Imagine it like this. So Tom gets in the elevator that is Greenscape by himself at the bottom floor. A few floors up, he decides to offer some of the extra space to Outdoor Living to get in the elevator with him. They ride it up a few more floors together, and using both of their connections, they get off a few floors up at an exclusive party to go pop some champagne. So this elevator deal is a win-win for both Tom and Outdoor Living Inc., and Tom gets a huge upfront payout. He gets to stay involved in the business that he loves. Later, he even gets to sell for more because of the growth help from the bigger company. Outdoor Living benefits too because they get to grow their business from his, and they made a lot more than they paid for his down the road. The cons? Well, this is risky for Tom. He has to trust that Outdoor Living is going to grow his company and not tank it. He also has to stick around for a good bit later, helping run the business while he could have been doing other things with his time. This made sense for Tom though, because he wasn't in a hurry to get out of this business. He saw that he was more likely to get there with a bigger strategic partner, so he took the opportunity. So I actually helped a client make a deal like this elevator deal. You can actually check it out right at the video up here. But to sum up what we just covered, we talked about why your small business offers cheaper growth, less risk, and strategy to the right big business. We also talked about the 3 ways that you can make it happen. I hope that this leaves you thinking more creatively about how you could sell your business for more and grow it. And I want to help you make those ideas into a plan. If you do want to talk about it, book a call with me in the description of this post, or just DM me with your questions at BrodyVinson.io on Instagram. That way we can make a plan together. And as always, keep killing it in your business, and happy value building.